Good evening. I'm Superintendent David Savine. Board of Education Policy BCA provides that the board is to elect a president and vice president from its members at its annual regular meeting in December. The policy also provides that the meeting is to be called to order by the superintendent. Accordingly, I'm declaring that a quorum exists, and I'm calling the December 13th, 2020 meeting to order the Board of Education of Washington County. I will serve as the presiding officer until the election is completed. At this time, I would like to invite a fifth grade student from Fountain Rock, Ellison Nagala, forward, and he is going to lead us in the pledge and then a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ellison, I just want to, if you wouldn't mind, remain standing there. I want to thank you for leading us in the pledge and also a moment of silence. I'll just say I've had an opportunity to learn a little bit about you. I understand that you're quite the soccer player and you have an interest in math. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And I also understand that you have a lot of respect for your parents. And your parents are here. I'm going to give you an opportunity to introduce your parents, your sister. I believe you have school leadership here as well. But what really stood out to me is your respect for your parents. I understand that you have an interest in following in their footsteps professionally, possibly either being like your dad, a professor, or perhaps a nurse like your mother. Is that accurate? And I'm going to give you a chance to expand on your career aspirations.
Yes, that is accurate.
Thank you, Ellison. I'll give you an opportunity to introduce your family members and recognize them, as well as your school principal and other leaders from your school community.
Yeah. My sister Shay over there, she's 12, goes to St. Mary Catholic School, and we've had our arguments at times, but she's a really good sister. Then there's my dad, a professor at Montgomery College, part-time at Maryland Global University. And also, me and him like to watch soccer, the World Cup together. Then there's also my mom, who is a nurse, as you know. Yeah, she's a good mom. And I like her. My school principal, Mrs. Palm. Don't really know much about her, but she's nice.
That's good that you know much about your school principal.
And she's a good person. Then there's my teacher, Miss Cantlin. She's always guided me. She's a good teacher, always helping out with the students, including me. And yeah.
Well, thank you, Ellison, and we appreciate you joining us today and leading us in the pledge and a moment of silence to open up tonight's meeting. I'm not surprised that you're a familiar face. I know we've recognized you and your sister before. I know here recently with the character counts, you were recognized for fairness. I just thank you for being such a great role model to our students across Washington County Public Schools, and thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for inviting me.
Now, continuing with our agenda and order of business, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
A motion,
Second.
and we have a second. Those in favor of approving the agenda? Okay, I've got a 7-0 vote with the student member also supporting that, the approval of the agenda. Now we'll move on to the approval of minutes. May I have a motion to approve the closed session minutes of November the 15th, 2022?
So moved.
All right, Mrs. Zentmeyer, motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Williams with the second. Approving. Any discussion by board members? Hearing none. Those in favor, please say aye or raise your right hand. All right. We have a unanimous vote approving the minutes from November the 15th. May I have a motion to approve the business meeting minutes from the business meeting? I'm sorry, the previous was closed session. Now I'll entertain a motion to approve the business meeting minutes from November the 15th.
Dr. Savine, I move for approval of the business meeting minutes dated November 15, 2022.
So we have a motion by Mrs. Williams for approval of business meeting minutes of November the 15th. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Zentmeyer. Any discussion regarding that motion? Hearing none. Those in favor, say aye. Those opposed? All right. Minutes for the business meeting November the 15th been approved unanimously with the support of our student representative. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from the joint meeting with the delegation on December the 7th at this time?
So moved.
So we have a motion to approve the joint meeting minutes of delegation from December the 7th, 2022 by Mr. Stauffer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a second from Mrs. Williams. Any discussion? Those in favor of the motion, say aye. Those opposed?
Abstain. Abstain.
Okay, so 5-2, and
Abstain.
5-2 with the student member abstaining. So we have approval of the joint meeting with the delegation December the 7th, 2022. Now, moving on to the election of the president, we will now, as I mentioned, move forward with the board's reorganization. First, we will be looking at the election of the president for the upcoming year. Do we have a motion for the president of the Board of Education?
Dr. Savine, I proudly nominate Melissa Williams to continue as our president of the board.
All right, I have a nomination from Mr. Bickford nominating President Williams as the nomination for the upcoming year. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Mrs. Murray. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, we will close the nominations and call for a vote. Those that would like to see Mrs. Williams be the board president, please signify by raising your right hand and saying aye. Aye. Okay, we have a unanimous vote, including a student representative. Congratulations, President Williams.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
This brings us to the second item, which is the Board of Education's reorganization, election of the vice president. The nominations are now open for the office of vice president. We have a nomination.
Dr. Devine?
I nominate Mr. Stauffer as Vice President of the Board of Education.
Okay, we have a nomination from Mrs. Murray for Mr. Stauffer to serve as the vice president. Do we have a second?
Dr. Savine, I second that motion.
All right, we have a second by Mrs. Williams. Do we have any additional nominations for vice president? Okay, seeing and hearing none, the nominations are now closed. May I please see a vote by the raising of hands? Those in favor and support of Mr. Stan Stauffer as the Vice President, raise your right hand and say aye. All right, those opposed? Let the record show is a unanimous decision of the board, along with the support of the student representative. Once again, I congratulate Mr. Stauffer as our Vice President. And now it's my pleasure to turn the agenda over to President Williams' much capable hands. But thank you.
Dr. Savine, thank you for doing such a wonderful job presiding. Our next agenda item is new business, and we have as a first item of new business a donation, and we have Dr. Gary Willow, Associate Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, here to speak to us about that.
Well, good evening, President Williams, members of the board, Dr. Sovine. It is my pleasure to be here this evening along with 4 distinguished guests from Volvo. Every year, Volvo has been a generous partner of our VEX robotics program, and this year is no exception. I'm here tonight to ask you to approve a $25,000 donation from Volvo to continue to support our secondary Volvo robotics program. I did want to just take a minute, though, to allow them to introduce themselves and share a few words.
Thank you. My name is Kunjan Tokekar. Happy to be here. Been working with Volvo for close to 15 years. I'm the Director of Finance.
My name is Sarah Golden. I've been working with Volvo for about 5.5 years. I'm the Director of HR, Health, and Safety. And I'll just say a couple words and let Susan and Phil introduce themselves. Our plant manager couldn't be here today, so he is traveling today. So I know he would have liked to be here if he could have been, so he sends his regards, and thank you for letting us come here tonight. For us, this is really important. We've been involved with VEX for quite some time, and I've helped participate in the events and the competitions, and it's been a really great experience for me, getting to interact with the kids and spend time with that. We've had kids come into Volvo and test out the robots and all those things. It's been really valuable for us and for our employees. And we also recognize that by making this donation that we get to add value to our employees' families and their kids and get them excited about these things. Manufacturing, we say, is not always maybe the most sexy industry. So we know that if we can get kids involved early on and can enjoy these things, then we can create these innovators for the future, right? And the innovators of today as well. So we're really excited to do this and to continue this partnership and to find new ways to expand our partnership with Washington County Schools as well. So we look forward to that this year. And thanks again for letting us be here tonight.
I'm Susan Hale Thomas. I'm the communications manager, and I've been here all of 4 months. But we continue, and I'm very proud to be part of this and supporting STEM learning in Washington County.
My name is Bill DeVore. Very proud to be able to do this. I'm part of the business control or finance and accounting group. And I feel like the old guy here, but I've been here for 17 years with the organization. But very, very pleased to be here tonight.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
President Williams, I move to approve a donation in the amount of $25,000 from Volvo Group Truck to Washington County Public Schools Computer Science and Robotics Program.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to the vote. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. All right, we have a unanimous vote, and the student member concurs. Motion carries. Thank you all. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you for being with us this evening. We so very much appreciate your support for this robotics program. The kids love it. We love it. It's invaluable. So thank you. Thank you. Dr. Willis?
I thought we were standing back here.
They're
We're going to do something.
Okay.
Okay, Stan, this is the scooching.
Oh, we're scooching.
Scooching in.
All right. I'm gonna pull my chair out from under me. You'll kindly replace it, right? You want to squeeze in here?
They'll move you. Aaron will move you.
Yeah, Aaron will save.
All right, good smile, 0 on 3. 1, 2, 3. Another 1, 2, 3. And one more for good measure. 1, 2, 3. Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you, you're so kind. We'll have more new business after old business later in the agenda. Right now, we'll have the superintendent's report.
Thank you, President Williams. Washington County is home to not one, but 2 state champion volleyball teams, and they are both joining us this evening. I would, at this time, like to invite our Supervisor of Athletics and Health and Physical Education, Mr. Eric Michael, to join us so we can honor these outstanding student athletes and their coaches.
Good evening, President Williams, Dr. Savine, members of the board. It's my honor this evening to introduce 2 state champion volleyball teams, Clear Spring and North Hagerstown. For those who don't know, Washington County has a rich history in developing championship volleyball programs, and this year continued that tradition. It's often said that if a team makes it out of the region that includes Washington County, they have a very good shot at coming home with a state championship, and this year was no different. If anyone had the pleasure, when we had the region tournament going on, to go to Clear Spring or North Hagerstown that week, you saw some excellent volleyball take place and some hard-fought games. So you know exactly what I'm talking about if you took part in those, watching those games. Tonight with us, we have Clear Spring. Clear Spring withstood the region juggernaut by playing a 4-set match against Williamsport, and then followed that up 2 days later with playing a 5-set match against Smithsburg. 2 very historic programs in the state of Maryland, and they come out on top of that. To advance, once they advanced to the state tournament, they easily went through the semifinals, winning 3-0, and then on to the state championship, and also winning that in a 3-0 sweep. It's my pleasure tonight to welcome the 1A state champion volleyball team, Clear Spring Blazers. I'm going to introduce the team in a numerical order by jersey number. So we're going to start Audrey Allen. Brianna Josenhans. Kai McCauley. Skylar Plant. Ella Papa. Amber Whitmer. Morgan Householder. Callie Hose. Lizzie Lawson. Addison Ziegler. I'm just going to announce a couple of students that were not able to be with us tonight. They're also team members. Haley Ernst, Emerson Motes, Emily Hickson, Faith Moore, and Dana Hammond. With us, we have head coach Jessica Custer. And assistant coach Lindsay Plotner. So while they're getting organized for a picture, just want to say this was Clear Spring's 4th state championship. It was Coach Custer's 2nd state championship as a coach. All county teams came out today. The Clear Spring had 2 first-team all-county members and 3 second-team all-county members.
They're never going to see us.
Okay, I think I'm going to have the board members kind of part the Cs.
Okay.
Just as you come out to the side.
Part the scenes.
Parking the Cs? They can't see. Their volleyball players are too tall. That's what Aaron just said.
Which way, Aaron? Are we good?
I know what she said, but I don't know which way she wanted us to
You have to
go.
come this way.
If you take a step to your right, I'm going to be able to get you in there. More? A little more.
I didn't know how she wanted to.
There we go. All right, good. Smiles here on 3. You're ready? 1, 2, 3. And again, 1, 2, 3. One more for good measure. 1, 2. Excellent.
And before these young ladies go, I just want to say this. We are education-based athletic programs, and we always want to tie back to education. So it's my great honor to say that this team has a team GPA of 3.67. Congratulations, ladies. So, as I said, North Hagerstown, as a 3A, competed in the 3A. They were kind of the opposite of Clear Spring. They could breeze right through their region tournament with a 3-0 of the 3-0 sweep of both of their opponents on their way to win the 3A West Championship. When they got to the state tournament and the state semifinals, they met up against some very formidable opponents. First, they had Magruder. Got down to TJ in the semifinals. That match went to 4 sets, with North obviously coming out on top. And then when they got to the state championship, they defeated North Calvert in 4 sets as well, to earn the title of 3A state champions. So again, we're going to introduce the student athletes in numerical order. We do have several of the North High students competing with other teams tonight, so I am going to read down in numerical order. I did not check off who was here and who was not, okay? So first up, Marley Knight, Emily Gassaway, Aubrey Chamberlain, Bailey Doolin, Sydney Wilt, Kayla Turner, Sophia Williams, Gabby Grantham Medley, Armani Kenny, Candace Doolin, Lauren Hobbs, and Nevaeh Ware. Assistant coaches for North Hagerstown are Lacey Johnson, Katie Eck, and head coach Megan Crawford. And while we're lining up for the picture, just some accolades from this team. Also, the 4th state championship for North Hagerstown. It's also the 4th state championship for Coach Crawford. As we said, All county come out today. The North Hagerstown also participates in the Central Maryland Conference. North Hagerstown was the overall Central Maryland Conference champions. They had 3 team members on the first team all-conference, 2 team members on second team all-conference, 2 team members honorable mention. All county, as I said, was announced today. They have 4 team members on the first team, 2 team members announced to the second team, and 1 to the third team. And Gabby Grantham Medley was the player of the year for Washington County. And again, North Hagerstown, a very good academic student athletes here with a team GPA of 3.89. Congratulations to both of our teams. Thank you.
We're ready to move on to our next agenda item is public comment. And I usually have a copy of policy KD here with me on the dais, but I don't this evening. And I don't have it memorized, but I will say that we have members.
It's coming.
Oh, it's coming? Thank you. So I'm reading from policy KD. This is regarding public comment at business meetings. At each public business meeting of the Board of Education, an opportunity will be provided for individuals to speak to matters relating to Washington County Public Schools. This opportunity under the agenda title of public comment will follow the approval of minutes. Each person wishing to address the Board of Education is encouraged but not required to sign up prior to the meeting and may address any topic concerning Washington County Public Schools, except personnel or matters which clearly identify an individual or individuals. Each speaker may speak for up to 5 minutes. The chairperson reserves the right to limit the number of speakers on any particular topic, provided the issue in question has been presented, and further comments would simply be repetitious. Okay, at this time, I'll call the first person who has signed up in advance, and that is Jessica Taylor. Ms. Taylor, would you like to come forward, please? Ms. Taylor, Mr. Bickford is our timer. Yep, wherever you're comfortable.
When you have about 30 seconds left, I'll hold up yellow, and then this is obvious.
Good evening, members of the board and Dr. Savine. My name is Jessica Taylor. I'm a 5th grade teacher. To give you a little background, I've been teaching at WCPS for 13 years in both 3rd and now 5th grade. I have been piloting the CKLA and ELA since the start of this school year. So I wanted to share with you the success that I have seen in my classroom through the use of this highly qualified instructional material. My students are better writers this year than they have ever been before. Every day they are engaging in complex texts that challenge them as readers. They have been immersed in content-rich vocabulary and learned so much. We have read diverse narratives, learned about ancient civilizations. We have read a variety of poems. My students have learned parts of speech, how to write complete sentences, figurative language, spelling patterns, and poetic devices. This is all within the first few units, and it only scratches the surface of what we have done so far. I could go on and on. But most important of all, my students really enjoyed this reading. They're excited about what we do. Every day is a new day, and they are always eager to know what the next lesson will bring. They are engaged. The lessons are all planned, and the components are there in front of you. With this, as an educator, I can bring it to life for my students. I can provide more individualized instructions for the students that are in front of me. The text is there, the vocabulary is there, and the activities are there. The guesswork is all taken out of it. That has allowed me to make instructional decisions that I need to make to meet the needs of the learners in front of me. I want to speak momentarily from a parental standpoint. I have a 4th grader in WCPS and 2 others that will soon be WCPS students as well. I really feel that this is a positive direction for us to go. The consistency and progression that it will bring across schools and grade levels will be beneficial for all. I'm excited for my own child to engage in this new learning, and I want to ensure parents that this is a quality resource and it's what is best for our kids based on research, quality, and engagement. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Sarah Alexander. Good evening.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Sarah Alexander. I have given public comment on 2 previous occasions in regards to my son, Aiden, and his experience within the school prior to his death, the state of our students' mental health and the resources available within Washington County, and a request to create a standard operating procedure regarding the loss of students to provide guidance and consistency to building level leaders. I want to start by stating my appreciation to Dr. Sovine. I sent an email shortly after he began working for Washington County Public Schools, and his response was timely. He was kind, compassionate, and allowed me to be honest in our meeting. He listened to Aiden's story and heard my requests. Unlike his predecessor, he was willing to convene a committee of educators to explore the current process Washington County Public Schools has in place in regards to honoring and including students in school-related events even after their untimely passing. The recommendation of the committee he created and his ultimate decision will not only impact our family and school community, but it will impact 4 other families and 3 other schools within Washington County Public Schools over the next 2 to 3 years. The amount of loss the Washington County Public Schools community has endured over the past 19 months is utterly heartbreaking. The 5 beautiful souls of the children we have lost deserve to be included in all of the rites of passages associated with high school, such as seniors' nights, honor ceremonies, and even graduation, regardless of their cause of death or the age in which they passed. Their classmates deserve to hear their names and have them included. I know all of the families are anxiously awaiting your decision on your policy. I also want to acknowledge the work that Washington County Public Schools has done in the area of mental health. You have included 988, the Suicide Crisis Prevention Hotline, on your homepage. There's a mental health fair held in the spring, which includes collaboration with outside organizations and agencies, which allows them to share the resources available within our community. There has been an increase in the number of social workers hired by Washington County Public Schools to meet the needs of our students. And mental health first aid and safe talk trainings are offered to staff as options multiple times a year. For all of these things, I want to share my deep appreciation. While each of those changes are wonderful, there is still much work needed to truly help our students. I'm curious if you, the Board of Education, have had the most recent suicidal ideation data for Washington County Public School students shared with you. Have you been provided with the trend data? As an educator for another county, I can say the data is not positive. It's actually quite staggering. People look at my family and they believe mental health concerns is unique to just us, that suicide is an Alexander family issue. They think it can't happen to them, that it won't happen to them, that they will know if their child is struggling. I am here before you as living proof that it can happen to anyone. We are living proof that a child's struggles can go undetected by their family, friends, teachers, and coaches. This is not a topic unique to our family. Mental health awareness is of critical importance to all of our children. I'm here tonight as a bereaved mother, community member, and educator, and once again, I sit before you begging for you to take action. The 2 previous times I was here, I followed up my public comment with an email to the entire Board of Education. By a show of hands, how many of you responded to my email? None. That's right, none. By a show of hands, how many of you replied to my second email? One, Mr. Gusford did. And in his email, he simply wanted to acknowledge that he received it and read it. In both emails, I requested face-to-face meetings with the Board of Education. And both times, I feel I was blatantly ignored. I'm curious, as the Board of Education, how would you respond if teachers within Washington County Public Schools did not return your email? How would you feel if the superintendent didn't respond to your email? Would you consider that to be acceptable? You are elected officials, and as elected officials, you have an obligation to respond and meet with your constituents. Yet every single one of you forgot that expectation of your position. Can any of you explain to me why you deliberately chose to ignore my email requests? Was my son's life not important enough for you to hear more of his story? Are the lives of all of the students enrolled in Washington County Public Schools not important enough for you to talk to parents and, more importantly, students about the real issues facing them? Your decision to ignore me, a parent whose child died because of the toxic culture and climate that was created and reinforced within one of your very own schools, is the exact reason why I did not cast a vote for any of you, nor will I in the future. I'm asking you to please look at the data. Washington County Public Schools collects a plethora of it on a wide variety of topics. Washington County government put an entire local plan together, filled with data that supports their plans, their ideas, and their actions. There are numerous outside agencies collecting data and making it available to the public. Have you ever looked into the data surrounding mental health, self-harm, suicidal ideation, suicide attempts, or even suicides themselves? The information's there. It's all been collected, and some has already been made available to pertinent staff members as well as the public. I have shared this data with you previously, therefore I know you've heard it. However, I'll go one step further. When I email you again following tonight's public comment, I will include all of the current data that I have access to. I highly recommend you ask the staff here at CES, if you haven't already, to share with you the most recent data as it applies to students in Washington County Public Schools in regards to mental health and suicidal ideation. Aiden had a lot of friends within Washington County Public Schools, and we continue to have relationships with many of them. It's a reciprocal relationship that allows all of us to continue to feel connected to my son. It's actually quite beautiful. We laugh, we joke, we share his stories of his amazing personality. And it brings nothing but joy to my heart to share with his friends how amazing he really was. However, it's heartbreaking to hear that the attempts of his friends to talk about mental health and suicide prevention within their schools has been denied. They've been told we don't talk about that. We don't bring that up. And these are students asking, can we please talk about it more? Putting our heads in the sand each time a topic is brought up, each time an uncomfortable topic is brought up, is not going to make it go away. It actually does the opposite. It perpetuates the stigma associated with it and continues to make students feel like there is something wrong with them. I'm asking you, what is in place to help our students and staff with their mental health concerns? As educational leaders, if we continue to avoid topics that make us uncomfortable, then maybe it's time for us to reevaluate our careers. I truly want to be a valued partner in these conversations surrounding the mental health needs of our students, but I feel like you are making me an adversary. While I may no longer have students actively enrolled in Washington County Public Schools, I am still an extremely active member of the community who is advocating for nothing more than what is best for our students. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Alexander. Matt Alexander? Good evening.
Hello, my name is Matthew Alexander. I lost my son, Aiden Matthew Alexander, to suicide April 19, 2019. He was a student at Smithsburg High School. Washington County has implemented various mental health initiatives, and for that I thank you. However, as a parent and a member of the community, we have to do more. Suicide is the second leading cause of death among teens and young adults. Talking about suicide does not put those thoughts into children's heads. Instead, talking about it can provide assurance that somebody cares and even give them a chance to talk about their feelings. Depression and suicidal feelings are a treatable medical disorder. We often lose sight of mental health, and for whatever reason, we only worry about physical health. Poor mental health can significantly increase the risk of physical health problems. We openly talk about physical health and the importance of maintaining our physical health. Why do we not do the same for mental health? Not talking about it does not prevent anything negative from happening. If anything, not talking about it allows it to get worse. There are a lot of statistics, surveys, and polls that display a multitude of numbers that all point to a growing problem in mental health. As a surviving parent of a child who died from suicide, I assure you the only number that matters is 1. You need only to impact one child, one person, one human being to make a difference. If we have to spend millions of dollars to save a child, trust me, it's worth it. Just ask any parent who has outlived their child. Did you know there was no word in the English language that means a parent who lost a child? There is a Sanskrit word, viloma. It means against a natural order. That is what it is like to lose a child. It is against every natural order in your being. If I achieved nothing else in my life but to save one parent from feeling what I feel every day from losing a child, I will have succeeded and made it all worth it. I implore you, when you are deciding what to do, what policies to enact, where to cut funding, where to spend funding, just remember, 1.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. John Edward Ashbaugh. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is John. I'm here tonight as a concerned student of Washington County. As a senior in the county and one that is heavily involved within the school, I have had the opportunity to see the student body from a perspective that is invaluable to this board and the topic I am about to discuss. I have experienced tragedy and witnessed the tragedy of others throughout my time at WCPS. I'm here tonight to tell you that we need help. The mental strain that a typical high schooler endures in a school day is unbearable. It deteriorates our ability to learn by reducing our motivation and our ability to focus on our schoolwork. Mental health comes in all different forms, and the silence that the student body is facing from you and your employees needs to stop. Let me share with you my personal experience. In 2021, my lifelong friend Aiden died by suicide. He was bullied, and his mental health was not addressed as it should have been. He was failed by his friends and his community for not realizing the help that he needed. I, along with a very large number of classmates and community members, attended his memorial. Aiden was only 15. He didn't deserve that. We were in our second year of high school. 15-year-olds should not be put in a position where they are missing school to attend a friend's funeral. Now, I'm not blaming WCPS for the death of my friend, and I'm not here today to reprimand anyone. I'm here today to tell you that the student body has been failed several times, almost as if the death of a student didn't help open anyone's eyes. As a member of several organizations and a concerned student, over the past couple of years, I, along with other students, have approached our school's leadership in hopes of raising awareness to the subject matter. And other than on 2 occasions, we have been met with opposition. We have been told that the wounds are too fresh. The sad truth about losing a friend to suicide is that the wounds will always be fresh. But when those who were closest to Aiden and affected the most are asking for change, the wounds are not an issue. In prior generations, talk about suicide was taboo. The stigma attached to mental health is one my generation aims to change. Our county is obviously in need of opening up about mental health, especially since current and former students attempt suicide, with several being successful. Last year, I was selected along with several other students to tell those that were hiring our new superintendent what we wanted in the leader of our county. Unanimously, the student body said someone that will listen to us and care about us. Too many times have students in this county been not cared for and silenced. Dr. Sovine, we trusted that you would listen to us. And today I'm asking you to listen. Stop opposing us. Stop allowing your employees to oppose us. Mental health does not have to be scary. It does not have to be a sensitive topic, but it is an important one. It should be discussed and it should be advocated for. Hold your employees accountable and seriously consider the ideas that students have and listen to our cry for help. The Aiden Matthew Foundation has lots of ideas, and so do your students. We want change and we deserve it. You, members of the board, can do something about it. Help us today before we have to attend another student's funeral for something you could have helped us prevent. Thank you.
Kevin Bailey. Good evening.
Good evening, board members and the Board of Education. My name is Kevin Bailey, and I am one of the 9 original members of the Board of Directors, which have expanded to include 4 student representatives that make up the Aiden Matthew Ripple Effect Foundation. While I am the one speaking tonight, my comments represent our entire board. Our foundation was established in 2001. It is a recognized 501c3 nonprofit organization that promotes youth activism and advocacy surrounding mental health awareness and suicide prevention within their communities. We are dedicated to saving lives, promoting awareness, and reducing the stigma around mental health and suicide. We support creating a culture of acceptance, empowerment, compassion, and hope for families and communities affected by mental health illness and suicide. Through various fundraising activities and events and other community-based opportunities, we will provide scholarships to students who are advocates and activists within their communities for mental health awareness and suicide prevention. In addition, scholarships will be provided to educators interested in attending workshops, conventions, with a focus on mental health in schools. The main point for attending this meeting is first and foremost to put a face to our foundation. I'm sure you have heard about our foundation, and if not, I encourage you to visit our website, aidenmatthewrippleeffect.org, to find out more about our events and outreach within our community. Our foundation comes before you this evening not to point fingers or pass blame or ask you to fix all the problems surrounding mental health in our community. We come to you looking to help. We want to be a part of the solution or at least help brainstorm potential solutions. As you know, the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, the YRBS, is conducted every year in order to provide communities with an opportunity to see what kinds of work is being done to assess our students who are struggling with health risk behaviors. Looking at the data regarding mental health, specifically for high schoolers in the 2018 and 2019 survey, we don't have the most current data yet, but for that survey, you will see that the Washington County ranks 9th in the state for students who have been bullied both on school property as well as through social media or cyberbullying. Washington County ranks in the top 3 counties in the state for percentages of students who said they feel sad or hopeless almost every day for at least 2 weeks in a row. Again, Washington County is in the top 10 among the state for percentages of students who have seriously considered attempting suicide. All of these percentages are higher than the state average by comparison. If you thought these percentages or ranks get better with the middle school age group, you would be wrong. In fact, Washington County ranks 4th in the state for both percentages of middle school students who have been bullied on both on school property as well as online, which again is higher than the state average percentages. Washington County ranks 12th in the state for the percentage of students who have seriously thought about killing themselves. Although lower than the state average, the percentages for this data point was increased from the surveys from 2014 and 2016. What we have seen during our short time as an organization as school systems fail both students and educators in having their voices heard time and time again. Recently, we conducted our own survey specifically to see if the school and community is doing enough to meet the mental health needs of our students, educators, and community members. While we have not had it open for a long period of time, we were able to capture a little less than 100 responses to date, with 66% of respondents living in Washington County. In an effort to save some time, let me quickly summarize some of our findings. The data shows a high percentage of respondents feel there is not an adequate number of mental health resources available in schools. Respondents also feel that schools do not make mental health a priority. Finally, the data shows that many high school age respondents do not feel bullying is appropriately addressed at school. We will happily share all this data with you following this meeting in detail, as well as produce it on our website. Looking at both the YRBS survey as well as our own self-conducted survey, one main point stands out. The need and want for mental health resources is very much there. As much as our organization may try to raise awareness and tackle this daunting task, we are only but one small group of volunteers. To further our reach and assistance, we now look to you, members of the board, that can actively bring change to schools in Washington County. At this point, we have set up many fundraisers and community-based events within both Frederick and Washington County. These events have brought people from all ages and backgrounds together in hopes to reach a broader audience of the importance of mental health, suicide awareness, and prevention. While we have been able to accomplish a lot in the short time our foundation has existed, we still struggle to have WCPS engage with us as a foundation to brainstorm and implement solutions. Our local school held a mental health informational night, and while this has been a great first step and wonderful to see the progress in this area, the event was poorly attended and was not able to reach a larger audience. We appreciate the effort and hope to see more of that, but would also like to help promote and think of ideas that could bring in a greater audience. So we are asking to help. We want to help. This is not a you or us problem. This is a community issue, and it will take community engagement and help to come up with a solution. As we look forward to the future, our foundation wants to continue its efforts in spreading awareness, kindness, as well as positivity throughout Washington County. We would like to join forces with WCPS, FCPS, and many other organizations to help arm students, educators, and administrators, and community leaders with things that will help combat increasing number of mental health crises. We hope that WCPS will stay open to putting together working groups and safe spaces to come together to talk about how together we can help spread the word about mental health. Together, our community of leaders can make real change, which will lead to a massive and positive ripple effect. We are here, we are committed to help, and together we can be the drop of water that starts that initial ripple. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Matt Breeding.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent.
Good
President
evening.
Williams, board members. My name is Matt Breeding, Washington County resident. Watching these last couple speakers have kind of changed my tone a little bit, and it's quite a tough act to follow, and it's a pretty sensitive issue. I've never addressed the board before, and I'm here as a private citizen and as a taxpayer. And I was not really aware of the full controversy that I'm going to talk about in a minute until election night when I heard some people talking about it, and I went back and watched your November 1st meeting on Facebook. And I was stunned by some of the comments I heard by board members. But first, I'd like to compliment a couple board members on the things they said that I thought were very positive. Linda Murray, board member Linda Murray, I really appreciate your comments about how parents could opt out of the inappropriate materials in the libraries. And they gave a path, and you talked about a procedure that's in place to restrict the controversial books in the libraries and the parents. And I appreciated your comments. And I wanted to make that publicly aware. Board member Gesford, you talked about some software that was installed years ago to restrict the inappropriate material on the school board issued laptops and information processing systems, and that was good to know. And Mr. Evans, you said twice, you used the word disgusting material. And I was touched by that, and you were loud and vocal, and I thought that demonstrated absolute leadership. And this issue of the pornographic books in the school has been talked about all over the nation, started in Loudoun County, and of course, that's still in the news. This is still a hot subject all over the country. What bothers me about this most, and I thought about this a lot, after hearing this speaker read out loud that night the material in the book, I was stunned to hear that in a public setting. You couldn't say what she said on TV, on public broadcast, but it was said here. And the material is available to our students. I cannot imagine a parent that would buy those books and give them to the kids, or imagine even something else, a neighbor, and I don't know how many of you are parents, but a neighbor buying those books and giving them to your high school student. I Googled it. High school students could be 13, 14, or 15 years old in ninth grade. Imagine them buying those books and distributing them to your kids, a neighbor. And I would be alarmed if you wouldn't say, I'm calling someone from social services or an enforcement agency thinking something deviant is going on in that person's home. But yet, the Board of Education has taken the money from the taxpayers, bought these books, put it in the libraries, and made it available to young men and women as young as 13 years of age. I find that reprehensible on every level. Ms. Murray, I liked your point, but I think the program is exactly backwards. Opt out? How about opt in? If parents want their parents to see that, how about a program where they opt in? Mr. Evans, you mentioned you weren't aware whether the law allowed for the removal of books, but you weren't sure there wasn't a procedure that they could be removed. I think that needs to be determined. This is reprehensible that this material is in the libraries. And I'm pretty sure with everyone here on this board, looking at your ages, close to mine, I'm 63 years of age, I feel very confident that that material was not in the libraries of your schools or my school growing up. This is part of the sliding of standards in society, and this is allowed to stand. I suggested to one board member to sign the books out. Sign the books out and don't put them in there, and refuse to approve the money to purchase the new books. And the board member said to me, that's the last thing we want to do is be sued by the ACLU, or the American Civil Liberties Union. I'm a retired law enforcement officer. We used to call them all criminals love us. And I countered with, that's exactly what you want to do. You want to be sued by the ACLU. The parents, the public, the taxpayers need to know what's going on. There's how many people in this room tonight, how many people watch this on Facebook, aware of this horrible material in the class or available to the students? I think it's reprehensible. One final comment, and this is directed to one particular member who found it acceptable to have these books in the school. Sir, I wouldn't want you around any children whatsoever. I find it reprehensible, and I think you should resign, and I'm calling for your resignation. Thank you.
Ashley McCusker? Good evening.
Hi, everyone. At the last meeting I spoke at, I read pornographic material out of books available in Washington County high school libraries. After my speech, I had an outpouring of support from people I don't even know thanking me for speaking about this topic. The amount of people who had no idea this is something readily available in our libraries was worrisome. To be fair to the parents and citizens, they really had no reason to assume something like this would be in school. Why should we assume that the current library books break all of the guidelines you have in place for us and our students? No writing about drugs, sex, violence, normal things that do not need to be administered to or from our students. My children and I signed these guidelines because they are common sense and we agree with them. Unfortunately, somewhere along the way, these written topics have slipped in under the radar and landed in our school libraries. I'm curious to know the guidelines you have in place when choosing library books. Do you have a clause stating books are not allowed to have sexually explicit material in it, drug use, violence? Or does anything go as you simply go by national associations who mark sexually explicit books like I read last time as teacher choice books? Now on to the replies I received from the board members after reading these books. Some said nothing. Mr. Gusford and Mr. Evans stated they wanted to get these books out of the library and do not think it is acceptable for our children. Mr. Stauffer recommended family story time for a book called Crank and thinks the books I read aloud were fine because children will eventually grow up and go to college in the military. Mind you, this is at a time when I'm absolutely on board with these books being read. Mrs. Murray states we already have a process in place to prevent our children from being able to get these books by getting in contact with the school librarian and putting the books on a list of not allowed to check out. Let's break this down a little further. Other than Mr. Gusford and Mr. Evans, no one else on the Board of Education wanted to see the sexually explicit material to be removed, or didn't say so verbally. This is problem number one. Problem number two is the fact that the solution in place isn't a solution at all. Here is the list of books that are currently in the high school library where my children will be. This is 178 pages, or over 5,000 books located in the library. So my job is to read through these books to make sure they don't have sexually explicit material in them. Let me tell you, it's not as easy as looking at the name of a book and determining if it's sexually explicit. For instance, the book Looking for Alaska has sexually explicit material in it, while the book Rules of Attraction never crosses that line. Basically, you try to give the facade that there are things in place to protect our children, yet they are completely unrealistic and will not do that. At this rate, I might be able to stop my grandchildren from checking out books with sexually explicit material, but there's no chance I'll be able to stop my kids. How many of you had read 5,000 books in your life? I do not understand why there is not common sense guideline in place preventing sexually explicit material in our libraries. To those who say I'm only reading excerpts and not the whole book, you would be correct, but it's irrelevant. It does not take away from the fact that it's pornographic in nature and does not have a place near minors. The author could have just as easily left this part out of the book, or at bare minimum, not given detailed, extremely graphic description of sexual acts being performed. Let's also not make this into an issue it's not. People are accusing us of wanting books out of the library because of it being LGBTQ+. I don't care if it's homosexual or heterosexual. It's the sexual part that's the problem, and I read examples of each and expressed my displeasure for both. Mr. Stauffer, I want you to know that since the last meeting, I have read Crank. I will also say, after reading this and the fact that you outright supported the sexually explicit books I read last time, I question your moral compass and think you should resign. I do not trust you to make choices for the children. Our children should be the most important thing and the reason you are on this board. You should fight to protect them. There will be parents that fall on both sides of this issue, and I realize that. But not having sexually explicit material in school does not hurt a child. If there are parents who feel this is acceptable for their children, there's nothing stopping them from introducing it to them at home. On the other hand, you are forcing my children to be around something I, as a parent, do not want them to have access to. I'm asking that the Board of Education members create a process in which the Board of Education has the power to review and remove, if they see fit, sexually explicit books from our libraries. Unfortunately, it will have to come from one of the 3 board members who voted for parental choice. I'm asking that you make a stand and bring up a vote for this. Let the public see where the board members align themselves by voting to keep sexually explicit material in schools or voting them out.
Thank you, Mrs. McCusker. Is there anyone else who has not signed up who'd like to speak? Yes, ma'am. Your name, please?
Karen McCarthy.
Thank you.
Hey, guys.
Good evening.
Good evening. All right. Good evening, Dr. Savine, President Williams, and members of the board. My name is Karen McCarthy. I teach first grade at Fountaindale Elementary School. The staff at Fountaindale Elementary School are grateful for the opportunity to share, and we thank you in advance for taking the time to come alongside us as we continue to ensure that Washington County Public Schools is an incredible place to learn, grow, and teach. We pride ourselves in our strong work ethic, our we learn attitude, and our community of teachers that value and support one another in every circumstance. We are considered a small city school. We're non-Title I, although our farm rates are rising. And we have many accomplishments that we don't mind bragging about. In many classrooms, you'll see students setting goals, positive and purposeful intervention by classroom teachers, increased school-wide writing, students leading parent conferences and taking ownership of their own learning, even in the primary grades. School-wide, we have students showing mastery in the arts, successful parent and teacher communication, and we were also recognized as having the 3rd highest proficiency rate on the 4th grade science cornerstone. Our new teachers feel supported within Washington County Public Schools, and 5 of our teachers were just awarded maintenance of their national board certifications. Many of our teachers have been teaching at Fountaindale for 10 years or more, several for 20 plus. I personally would like to retire from that school because it's an amazing, amazing place to work. That says something huge about our school community and the norms that we have built where student learning is priority. We respect each other as professionals, and collectively we use our passions to support both learning and each other. However, we are only as strong as our weakest link. And although we have found incredible ways to use every building resource possible, there are items we'd like you to consider with not just a Band-Aid solution, but systemic solutions for all, our school included. We'd like to highlight areas of concerns that we know are not just concerns in our building, but could have solutions to positively impact other Washington County public schools like ours as well. One concern is rising class sizes, specifically in our primary grades. Our kindergarten classes right now are at 28 and 29 students in each class with only 1 classroom teacher. Colmar for primary grade class sizes is suggested to be 1 staff member for 15 students, not to exceed 30. Students enter kindergarten with a vast range of social and emotional, academic, and language experiences. It is the job of all teachers, but especially primary teachers, to close these gaps for student success. Kindergarten classes of this size do not allow for the differentiation that needs to happen to lessen these gaps, and students in large class sizes lose valuable instruction time. Can you imagine moving 29 5-year-olds through anything? They lose a lot of time. As we look at upcoming years, the same scenario may be repeated as we have 2 full pre-kindergarten classes that will feed into our school's 2 kindergarten classes. This was the case this year, and then we had about 18 additional families register in August and September. For many of these children, navigating school is a brand new experience. Every kindergarten classroom across the county is composed of students with varied educational experiences and unique individual needs. When class sizes are large, the individual needs of each student, be that academic, social, emotional, or behavioral, can often go unmet. This is not due to a lack of effort, creative problem solving, or desire. It is due to an imbalance of what we have versus what we need, and our students deserve more. We have specifically asked for an additional teacher or paraprofessional for this grade level, and that request was denied. Now, we were told that we could use our intervention teacher as an additional kindergarten teacher, and as a school community, we came together and decided, for the benefit of our entire school community, that at this time we just could not afford to lose our 1 intervention teacher. We have 1 intervention teacher and 1 special education para, and that is the only academic support other than classroom teachers. Hiring extra teachers or paraprofessionals in schools with large class sizes but enough space to add more classes, or schools that don't receive additional Title I funding, would be extremely beneficial. Our second concern is the lack of substitutes. We know this is a countywide concern that is slowly being addressed, and as our school is finding creative solutions, we know that fixing things day by day is a very stressful position to put our school community in. It increases class sizes, and it pulls our school counselor, lead teacher, or intervention teacher away from working with students that need consistent daily instruction. All right, I'm talking too long. So guys, basically within the last 5 years, we've lost a lot of teachers to careers and location changes, and we're concerned that we're going to lose more. Teachers are facing mental health issues. Our school is wonderful, but there's just so much that we can do in one day with one class. I would like to say that I'm in awe of the work that my colleagues engage in every day. I work with some of the most dedicated professionals in the field, and in a district like this, that's saying something. There is not a student in our school that does not belong to every single staff member in that building. Our doors are wide open, and we encourage you to come and see the amazing work that these kids do every single day. So please reach out, and we will reach out to you. We would love to see you in our building, and we would love for you guys to meet our kids because they're awesome, and they deserve an education where their needs can be met and their teachers can do their jobs. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Good evening. Your name, please?
My name is William Kessler.
Thank you.
I'm here once again to talk about the pornographic filth present in Washington County Public School libraries. Don't worry, I'm not here to read excerpts to you tonight. It was, however, interesting to learn that the contents of these books are so highly inappropriate that a local news outlet had their email hosting canceled for quoting them while trying to solicit board member comment. These books are too explicit for email, but yet they sit on library shelves throughout Washington County. On numerous times, I've heard members of this board say that it is illegal to remove them from libraries. Then I wonder how other jurisdictions across the country are removing them. And let's just assume for a second that it would be illegal to remove these books. So what? Sometimes in life you have to do the right thing, whether it be legal or not. In 1776, our founding fathers committed high treason against the British Crown by signing our Declaration of Independence. After voting in the 1872 presidential election, Susan B. Anthony was arrested because it was illegal for women to vote. On December 1st, 1955, Rosa Parks was arrested for not giving up her seat on the bus. Should the United States of America not been created? Should women not be allowed to vote? Should people of color be considered second-class citizens? When it comes down to it, how much do you even really care about the law? When was the last time you broke the speed limit? When was the last time you used your phone while driving? When was the last time you got some unused prescription medicine from family or friends? I'm not asking you to incriminate yourselves. I'm just wondering how closely you actually follow the law in your day-to-day lives. These books must be removed from our schools. They are disgusting. And perhaps even more disgusting than the books themselves is Mr. Stauffer saying that he has no problem with them. Mr. Stauffer, that is so appalling. You should not be anywhere near children or a school system. You need to resign.
Thank you, Mr. Kessler. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Are you? Good evening. Your name, please?
Sure, my name is Nikki Dovey, and I am here this evening with concerns over class sizes. I'm kind of following up on Fountaindale's speech. I would like to address concerns I have over the student-to-teacher ratios in the kindergarten classrooms at Fountaindale Elementary School. Let me begin by saying how grateful I am to be part of the Fountaindale family and to have my son in the kindergarten program there. His teacher is incredibly strong and gifted as an educator, and I truly appreciate her and the role she plays in the lives of her classroom children. I have full faith in her, and if I didn't, I would have approached you guys earlier in the school year. I kind of thought as the year progressed that she would be receiving assistance. But I don't feel that this is fair to her, nor my 5-year-old son, nor his classmates to have such a large class size. It's 29 students and 1 teacher in that room. She does an incredible job, but it's just so very much. Kindergarten is the foundation for learning in the school system, the base for all knowledge that will follow. It's also the year when various learners come together for the first time, and we're asking 1 teacher to meet the needs of those who are all over the board. Some who have never left home for even preschool, some who are very far advanced, some who have delays that haven't yet been detected, all with the focus on year-end expectations for kindergartners. That's an enormous task, even with the best of ratios. I ask that you revisit the resources you provide these schools and these teachers and these students in terms of classroom size and the support that you can offer. Our children deserve it. And thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you.
Your name, please? Is Christy Gross. Good evening, board members. My name is Christy Gross. I'm a special education and reading teacher at North Hagerstown High School, and I've actually amended my comments, so bear with me. As a reading teacher, I am thrilled when a student wants to pick up any book. I believe that we should not restrict which books are offered in our schools, and that the best way to handle what students choose to read is by having honest, frank discussions at home. Now I'd like to talk about a few other pertinent issues which are directly impacting our wonderful school of North Hagerstown High. Overcrowding. We have too many students and not enough staff to support them. Some teacher classes are out of desks and chairs and need to borrow these essential pieces of furniture from each other just to accommodate a class period. During class changes, students are packed closely together in the halls, and staff who must travel between rooms and/or who patrol the corridors have a difficult time diffusing potential issues due to the sheer number of students traveling all at once. There can be serious safety issues with so many students traveling all at the same time and with not enough staff to patrol appropriately. An additional challenge lies in the increasing number of students arriving as 9th graders who are well below grade level in reading, writing, and math skills. Some students have reading scores in the mid-elementary range, leaving me to question why they've been promoted along in the first place. But let's talk about instruction. We have amazing, dedicated teachers, paraprofessionals, support staff, and administrators here at North. High-quality instruction is being delivered every single day, but a large portion of our students are missing it because they're so distracted by something that all of us in this room probably have in our pocket or our purse at this very moment: their phones. Yes, these little electronic devices have become such a way of life for most of us, but too many of our students are so attached to their phones they cannot seem to put them down or turn off music for even a portion of a class period, let alone an entire class. The countywide policy of, quote, no phones out during class, unquote, is frankly just not able to be enforced. Our school tries using yonder bags, which allow a phone to be secured inside a locked pouch, which the student retains until a class change, at which point he or she takes it to an administrative office to have it unlocked and get back their phone. Sounds great, yet our students have figured out how to break open the bags on their own, or they'll flat out refuse to put their phone in the yonder bag in the first place. Well, pick your battles, right? Let the kids keep their phones. How bad can it be? Not so fast. Here are some things that high school students use their phones for. FYI, I have personally seen each of these firsthand in my job, or I know of teachers who have experienced these. To cheat, students take pictures of their work, text it to a friend who has that same class 2 periods later in the day. Or they just look up answers. They arrange meetups in the hallways during classes. They make and receive FaceTime calls and audio calls during classes. Sometimes they attempt to order food delivery to be sent to school, which is not permitted. They share photos and videos in the blink of an eye, often without the consent of those people in those photos and videos. They listen to music with AirPods, often so loud it can be heard across the room. They cyberbully others, whether actively or passively, by forwarding screenshots and spreading rumors. They've ordered items on Amazon. They text each other, they play games, They watch TikTok, YouTube, and other streaming videos, and I could go on. Of course, this is not all of our students all of the time, but it happens a lot. We cannot ask our admin to come remove a student from class every time there is a phone use issue, as it would quite literally be all our admin did all day. And believe me, there are bigger fish to fry. The phones do create immense problems, however, as most students are addicted to these devices and will ignore staff requests to put them away, even if it means they might miss important content in class. So what is Washington County planning to do to make the use of personal devices during instructional time become a more serious offense? Our teachers are tired for so many reasons. We pick up extra responsibilities like join committees or coach sports. We chair clubs. We come in early or stay late to work with students and attend meetings with other staff. Frequently, we're asked to cover classes for someone who is out because there aren't often enough substitutes. Too many of our teachers are feeling underpaid and undervalued. I'm a product of the Washington County Public School System, and in fact, my family and I made the decision to move back to the county after my husband's military retirement. We wanted our own kids to attend the great school system that I attended, and we're thankful that they did. They're both in college, they're both being very successful, and we give thanks for the outstanding education they received right here in Washington County. And I love my job. I have wonderful colleagues. I believe strongly in what I do. I feel fortunate to teach at my own alma mater, and I'm a passionate advocate for my students. However, it's obvious that something must be done to alleviate the overcrowding, the persistent issues with non-school technology, and the added pressures felt by our valuable teachers and staff, not just at North Hagerstown High, but across Washington County. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Board. My name is Gene Kaufman. I'm a tax-paying citizen here in Washington County. My children went to Washington County Public Schools, and I'd like to address the Board tonight about what we've been hearing about in the media and from our friends, and that is the pornographic books in our school libraries. It's a problem throughout the country. It's being addressed by citizens who are concerned about those things. Last month, I listened to the meeting, and I was listening in horror as we were read a list of the deviant sexual materials that are available in our public schools. I like the idea of those materials being reviewed and put on a list where parents can opt in to those materials, not opt out. It's completely reversed if that's the current process. It needs to be an opt-in. But that's not the worst part. The worst part is that I listened to that and I was scandalized that a member of this board was okay with those materials being present and available to the students. Mr. Stauffer, you should resign from the board immediately. Thank you.
No one else? Thank you to all those who came forward to address the board this evening. At this time, we'll have board member response to public comment. Colleagues, board members have 3 minutes for their responses, should they choose to respond. Mr. Bickford, I'm going to ask you to keep track of time. Is there anyone who wishes to speak?
I'd just like to say, obviously, there's quite a bit to comment about. There's quite a few speakers we had there, so I do appreciate everyone. You know, a lot of it we have heard in the past, you know, it's not easy to address everything all at once. So, you know, we do appreciate everyone's patience. As far as I think it was Ms. Thomas spoke about the CKLA, I actually had the opportunity to go into Miss Smith's first grade classroom at Rams at Ruth Ann Monroe to observe her doing benchmark, and she loved that one about as much as as much as you love the CKLA. I don't know which one's better because I'm not the one doing it, teaching it. There's quite a few comments we've heard from teachers, so I do appreciate that. It does sound like either way there's some opportunity for improvement in some of those, so I'm happy to hear that we have a tough choice to make on that, and I think it's great that we have teachers speaking up and letting us know how they feel about it, so thank you.
Dr. Savon, in light of the many speakers that we had talking about library materials, I know that we have a process in place that allows for the review of materials that are thought to be objectionable. I don't know if any of the speakers have taken advantage of filing that request for review. Is it possible to have a staff member explain what that process is, how that can be initiated, so that any books that the speakers this evening or any other parent in Washington County Public Schools finds objectionable can be reviewed so that it can be determined whether or not it is appropriately placed in schools or at an appropriate level or is totally inappropriate.
Yes, President Williams, we do have a process in place, and I would invite Dr. Gary Willow forward. I know he's worked extensively with several parents that have expressed concerns, and I'll provide him with an opportunity to share the specific process for the benefit of the public.
Good evening again, President Williams, members of the board, Dr. Sovine. The reconsideration process in its entirety is on our WCPS website, along on our library site. When there is a book that a parent feels, or a community member or student or faculty member feels that is inappropriately placed, it starts at the school level. It's a meeting between the principal, library media specialist, because that is where the book orders begin. So our schools are the first stage of that. At that time, library media specialists, principals, parent guardian have that conversation and see if there is an outcome. In cases where when reviews, we do use national reviews when we're looking at, when our school library media specialists are looking at purchasing books. But it's not always as simple as looking at a review. And sometimes there is a need when reviews are inconsistent to bring a committee together to review a book. That is step 2 of the process. So it's a district committee at that point that would convene to review the book. And in the policy, it specifically mentions who's part of that. It's meant to be a representative group of parents, WCPS employees, community members, and so it is scripted on who would be part of that committee. If the parent, or again, guardian, student, staff member felt like the committee got the process incorrect, there is a final appeal to the executive leadership team that's appointed by the superintendent. The associate superintendent is on there, and 2 other designees for final approval. So that would be step 3 in the process.
Thank you, Dr. Will.
Can I ask a question about that?
I would like to ask a question, and then, so this is not limited to parents. Any citizen of Washington County could access the website, find that form, and submit.
Correct.
I could, as a board member, anyone sitting up here could do
It does
that.
start in the school residence that you, so the resident zone that you reside in. So if you're in the Boonesboro area, access to the Boonesboro schools to make that claim. And we have had a couple of cases this year where we've had, I'm going to say a citizen, to not disclose who, but put in request to have books reviewed for a school that a child did not reside in. So to your point, President Williams, it can be in other schools that I don't have a child in.
I have one more question as a
Yes.
follow-up. And this is something you may or may not know. Within the past year, 2 years, have you had any child or parent come forward to complain about a book that a child unknowingly checked out of the library that caused great upset with the parent or with the child?
Not that I'm aware of, but most of the time that would start probably with the principal and library media specialist and may not make it to my office.
Thank you.
So I thought we didn't have a policy on this. When was this policy approved?
It's not a policy. It is part of our procedures. It was reviewed at curriculum and instruction in July, but because it's not a policy, it's not something that is voted on like a typical policy.
How is it not a policy? I mean, you even use the word policy. It sounds like it should be a policy.
It's a little p policy, and
Yeah,
here comes our
my
chief legal
apologies.
counsel.
It would be procedures. Certainly, it's something that the policy committee could look at, but it is
policy to me.
It is procedures in its current format. Yes.
Often staff use the term policies and procedures. They mean little p. I often correct and say if it's big P or little p. Long before my time, there was library media and curriculum in one policy, and that policy changed long before my time. That curriculum is something that's approved by the board. It's a policy, big P. Library, since it's optional and not required, became a procedural document, and that's the document that Dr. Willow is referring to.
That is concerning to me. It sounds like a policy, and so I'm a little concerned about that it wasn't brought forward to the whole board.
President Williams, just for the benefit of board members, as I referenced, we do have a process in place, and as Dr. Willow has shared, it starts at the school level. There is a process where if the parent or in some cases a citizen disagrees, it can be appealed to the district level. There is a third review there, and certainly while this is a process that has been in place, if it is the desire of the board to charge the superintendent with working with staff to develop a policy regarding this, we can certainly entertain that, but we do have a process in place that allows us to address concerns of parents and citizens.
Thank you, Dr. Savine. Colleagues, do we have any other questions or comment?
I just have one point of clarification. If it is the board's will, they can make the recommendation to the policy committee, who will then explore that and bring that recommendation to the board.
I'd like to ask a question while we have our chief legal counsel here. One of the things that I heard during public comment was that the board should just go ahead and break the law, go against advice of legal counsel and remove books from libraries. So, Mrs. Ram, could you talk to us a little bit about the law and why a board member can't go into one of the school libraries and remove a book that he or she might feel is objectionable?
With all due respect, President Williams, I'm not prepared to speak fully on that. While I could speak off the cuff, I think it would be a disservice to the board for me to do so, and can certainly do a formal memo to the board.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And what would be the best way to share that memo then with the public? So that information is available to all those who would be interested in knowing what the board is hearing from legal counsel.
We certainly could do it a number of ways. You could have it as a work session. Usually advice of legal counsel happens in closed session. We also can make it as an agenda item under superintendent's report for the board. So there's one of three ways it can be handled. But for the purposes of the public hearing, if you want interactive, it would be a work session or be in a future board meeting.
Okay, thank you, and I do apologize for trying to put you on the spot for having you do that, but,
No apologies necessary. This is not a topic that should speak off the cuff.
okay, thank you. Colleagues, I'll ask one more time. Is there anyone who has anything else? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Willow. Thank you, Mrs. Johann. We'll move then from board member comment to old business. We have one action item, and it is the second reading of proposed changes to policy ECBA, maintenance and operations, energy conservation.
Thank you, President Williams, members of the board, Dr. Savine. I now present a more mundane topic for you. The Board of Education approved the first reading of proposed changes to policy ECBA at its public business meeting on November 14th, 2022. The policy committee posted a notice on board docs at the school system's website following the approval seeking comments from the public on the proposed changes to the policy. The committee did not receive any comments on the proposed changes, and it is now recommending the Board of Education to approve the second reading of proposed changes to policy ECBA.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve the second reading of proposed changes to policy ECBA entitled Maintenance and Operations Energy Conservation.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Is there any discussion, any questions?
This is required by state law, right?
That is correct.
Okay. Seeing no other questions or comments, we'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve the second reading of proposed changes to policy ECBA entitled Maintenance and Operations, Energy Conservation. All those in favor? 6 opposed? Did you have, I'm sorry, did you have?
No, I was going to ask a question before you
Oh,
voted.
I'm sorry.
But that's all right.
I'm sorry. You can still ask
That
your
was
question.
still an affirmative for me, but I,
Okay. You want to go ahead and have your question
Well,
answered?
yeah, my question was, do we know how much money it's going to cost for this monitoring of the energy? And do we keep statistics on schools like Antietam Academy that was built to address this issue?
We don't know the exact cost, and if I may call up Mr. Prue, who can better answer your question.
Sorry.
So, Mrs. Zentmeyer, Dr. Zentmeyer, I don't know at this time that we have a true cost. At the point that we go in the open market to procure our electricity, let's say as one specific utility, we have options to buy green energy as opposed to traditional electric. So it's typically a few cents more on the buying unit. So, there's opportunities to do that. There's opportunities to invest in solar. Opportunities come by the staff occasionally that we review and vet as to whether we want to bring that forward to the Board of Education. I think we've had some discussions with Facilities Committee on that topic over the year, and we also engage with a energy consultant who assists us with that buying and providing us guidance of the landscape of the market nationally, globally, what's going on with law to help guide us through that process. We can track energy uses down to every building. So as you mentioned, Antietam Academy is geothermal. So as is Bester, I believe. So those are two buildings that use less energy, use less electric because of the way they were built. So we have opportunities to do that, although in some of our older buildings, we're not sub-metered. So we have 1 meter at Clear Spring Middle and High School because it's one main feed into the campus at a meter, and then beyond that, it's set off into both buildings. So we'll be a little more challenged in some of those locations without installing sub-meters to determine exactly where the meter is spinning. But those are opportunities we can look at to say, it's a matter of where's the bang for the dollar. Do I just work on the whole campus as a whole and really just ratchet down things to get them where they are, or do I want to input the sub-meter and have that expense just to know that, oh, the high school is using more energy or the middle school is using more energy for any number of reasons. So lots of opportunities there. There may be opportunities to I think we shared with the policy committee at some point engage with an energy consultant to assist us in reviewing staff procedures and how staff utilize their energy. But at some point, it probably is a staff position that just manages energy usage.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Setmeyer, I apologize for not seeing your
That's all
hand
right.
before the vote was taken. So we had unanimous approval of the second reading of that policy. We'll move to new business. We started new business earlier in our meeting. We'll move to the second item under new business, which is this evening's consent agenda. And we have our supervisor of purchasing, Mr. Scott Baker, presenting. Good evening, Mr. Baker.
Good evening, President Williams, members of the board, Dr. Sovine. Tonight I have 8 items for your review. These items were reviewed by our Purchasing Review Committee and are being recommended for approval. And staff is available if you have any additional questions.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve the awards, renewals, and procurements for mechanical and refrigeration maintenance to Food Service Department, renewal to MTS Equipment for mechanical at a cost of $35,928, plus the cost of non-consumable parts, and Thai Construction Company, Inc. for refrigeration at a cost of $63,000, plus the cost of non-consumable parts and refrigerant. Unit price contract for plumbing services renewal to Frittinger Ritchie Incorporated, RH Lap, Mix Plumbing, and Beaver Mechanical at the unit prices listed. Unit price contract for cabling installation parts and equipment renewal to High Performance Cabling at the unit prices listed. Did I do that right, or did I skip a part?
You got it.
Okay, good. Sphero Classroom Robotics to PPC to Sphero Incorporated at a cost of $78,354.24. Bulk Motor Oil and Fluids to PPC Lubricants LLC at an approximate cost of $53,395.28. Air cleaning systems and supplies at the unit prices listed. Gasoline and diesel fuel deliveries to AC&T Company, Inc. at the bid factor plus minus the current OPUS wholesale price, and student information system purchase of additional modules to EduPoint, Inc. at an approximate cost of $670,444.
Thank you, Mr. Bigford. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Questions? Discussion?
Yeah, just a quick point of clarification, that EduPoint, that is replacing a current system that we have, right? So we're not really adding any cost. This is replacing a cost, right?
Correct. I'll let Mr. Allen speak to that a little bit.
Good evening, President Williams, Dr. Sovine, members of the board. The EduPoint purchase is replacing 2 different systems. We have one analytic system in place now, which will be offset, well, the new one will be offset by the cost of that one. And then the MTSS module is replacing another system that Dr. Willow oversees, yes.
Any other questions? Any discussion? Okay, we'll move then to the vote on Mr. Bickford's motion with Mrs. Murray's second. All those in favor of approval? Okay, we have a unanimous vote. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Baker.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Continuing under new business, our next action item is the first reading of proposed changes to Exhibit BDF-E9, Washington County Board of Education Safe Schools Advisory Committee.
Good evening again. The Policy Committee reviewed Exhibit BDF-E9 at its public work sessions on October 11th and November 10th, 2022. Currently, Exhibit BDF-E9 permits the Safe Schools Advisory Committee, comprised of both school system employees and non-employees, to review and examine certain safety materials and security issues. However, under state law, the school system may deny a request from an individual for safety and security materials. Changes to the exhibit are being recommended in order to protect the safety and security of Washington County Public Schools by not releasing safety and security plans to individuals who would typically be denied access to these materials under state law. The committee is now recommending the Board of Education approve the first reading of proposed changes to Exhibit BDF-E9.
Thank you, Mrs. Ram. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve the first reading of proposed changes to Exhibit BDF E9 entitled Washington County Board of Education Safe School Advisory Committee.
Mr. Bickford, is there a second? Second. Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Questions or comments? Any discussion? No? Then we'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve the first reading of proposed changes to Exhibit BDF-E9, Washington County Board of Education Safe Schools Advisory Committee. All those in favor? Okay, we have a unanimous vote. We have an approved first reading. Thank you. Okay, moving to our next action item. This is another policy, first reading of proposed changes to policy IKA, the grading system for secondary schools.
The Policy Committee reviewed proposed changes to Policy IKA at its public work sessions on November 10th and December 6th, 2022, at the request of staff. The Grading Policy Committee, comprised of staff, parents, and community members, reviewed Policy IKA to ensure that it met the current state standards, blueprint for Maryland's future, and aligned with district goals and objectives. The Grading Policy Committee discussed floor grades, letter grades versus percentage grades, grade point average weighting and calculation, valedictorian, salutatorian, course failures, course retakes, and final exams and projects. The Grading Policy Committee's proposed changes were then shared with the Board of Education's Curriculum and Instruction Committee, secondary principals, staff from the Division of Curriculum, secondary lead teachers, department leaders, technology staff, and the Washington County Teachers Association. As a result of the above, there were recommended changes to Policy IKA, which were then shared with the Policy Committee for its review. Proposed changes to the policy include, but are not limited to, the addition of definition and final grade calculation sections, converting percentages to letter grades, requiring end-of-course assessments, and expanding the list of weighted courses. The Policy Committee is recommending the Board of Education approve the first reading of proposed changes to Policy IKA.
Thank you, Mrs. Ram. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve the first reading of proposed changes to Policy IKA entitled Grading System for Secondary Schools.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Any questions, any discussion? Did I have an appropriate pause there to allow for?
Good, thanks, good wait time there.
Thank you. Coming from a teacher, I appreciate that very much. Okay, we'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve the first reading of proposed changes to Policy IKA entitled Grading System for Secondary Schools. All in favor? Okay, we have a unanimous approval of the first reading of Policy IKA's changes. And our next item of new business is a donation. And we have Mr. Crew, our Chief Operating Officer, coming forward to tell us of that donation.
Good evening, Mrs. Williams, members of the board, Dr. Savine. It is my pleasure this evening to request your permission to accept on behalf of the Board of Education a donation in the amount of $10,000 from the Lakeside Book Company. This donation is being offered to the Food and Nutrition Services Department to assist families during the summer months through the school feeding program, the summer feeding program, and the meal machine program in a way that will be similar to what we have with our Micah's Backpack program during the school year. Lakeside Book Company is the parent corporation of Phoenix Color here in Hagerstown.
Thank you, Mr. Prue. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve a donation in the amount of $10,000 from Lakeside Book Company to the Washington County Public Schools Food and Nutrition Services.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Any questions? Any discussion? Okay, then we'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve a donation in the amount of $10,000 from Lakeside Book Company to Washington County Public Schools Food Nutrition Services. All those in favor? All right, we have a unanimous vote. We have approval. What a wonderful thing to do.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate their generosity.
pass on your regards.
and
Thank you.
their support to our food nutrition services. Thank you, Mr. Prue. That concludes new business, and we'll go back now to the superintendent's report. Dr. Sabine.
Yes, thank you, President Williams and members of the board. Washington County Public Schools has made incredible progress in preparing our community's children for kindergarten. About 6 years ago, WCPS ranked second to last in the state when it came to kindergarten readiness. I am proud to say that WCPS is now fourth in the state for kindergarten readiness. At this time, I invite Dr. Gary Willow, Associate Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction, and Mrs. Kelly Longer being Coordinator of Early Learning. They have much more good news to share with us tonight, so welcome. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Dr. Savine. And before we begin, I'd like to just recognize some people in the audience. If we have any pre-K teachers in the audience, pre-K paraprofessionals, go ahead and stand up. Division of Curriculum.
And if they're not here, they are here in spirit with us.
So why we want to recognize is, the importance of kindergarten readiness. We've talked about that for a while. And when we have students that come to us, and again, kindergarten readiness isn't a WCPS thing. It is a Washington County thing. It impacts all of us. And when we have students that come that are not ready for kindergarten, and Mrs. Longerbeam's going to explain what that looks like, the data shows that while we do a great job of continuing to help those students grow, by third grade, they're at risk for not being able to read, for falling behind in math. Coming to kindergarten prepared is essential. It's where gaps begin, really beforehand, and we first have access. This board made a major commitment back in 2016, 2017 to be the first school system to offer pre-K full day to all students. And so we're very proud to share our story, which is your story and our county story, with you tonight. So to that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Longerbeam.
Good evening, President Williams, board members, Dr. Sabine. Just so honored and blessed to be sitting in front of you tonight and talk about our kindergarten readiness data, because it is exciting and the positive things that we're seeing with it. So just to kind of give you an overview again of what the kindergarten readiness is, sometimes it's referred to as school readiness. But the thought is it's not only the knowledge, the skills, but it's also the behaviors that kids have when they enter school. We're laying that foundation in kindergarten for learning, not only for their kindergarten year, but for their life, because everything builds on that. So we want to have a solid foundation. We want all of our students, when they enter kindergarten, we want them ready. So the way that we measure that is we have something called the KRA, which is our Kindergarten Readiness Assessment. That is an assessment that the whole state of Maryland uses. So when students take that assessment, it includes all of our kindergarten students. So it's not only the students who had WCPS pre-K take this assessment, it's our students that had pre-K, they were at Head Start, they were at in-home providers, they were in centers, or they just stayed home. So all students do take this assessment. Once they take the assessment, they receive a score. That score will tell if they were demonstrating readiness, if they were approaching readiness, or if they're emerging. Now, the way we do this assessment, because you think with a 5-year-old, that's hard to do an assessment with them. So it looks a little bit different because part of the assessment is direct performance. So they do have students come back, work with them, they ask them questions, they answer it. The other half of the assessment is observational. So they're looking how that student is in the classroom. How are they on the playground? How are they in the lunchroom? And what's really nice about this assessment as well, it's looking at the whole child. So you're not just focusing on the literacy and math. There's also the domains of those social foundation skills and the physical development and well-being. So thinking about social foundation skills, those are those learner behaviors. How do they engage? How do they interact? because that's just as important as well as the other domains. Language and literacy. So those are looking at those reading foundational skills, looking at letter recognition, letter sounds, their reading comprehension. Their mathematics piece is looking at that number sense, addition, subtraction, geometry, measurement, and then the physical well-being and motor development. That includes, you're not going to be able to assess some of that in the classroom, so that's why we had that recess piece, because we want to see how they do move, those gross motor aspects, and then also just that fine motor as well. Are they able to do things? Are they able to hold a pencil? Those aspects with it. So Dr. Willow now is going to share some of our awesome results.
So when we look again to Ms. Longerbeam's point, we have 3 areas: demonstrating, approaching, and emerging. So when we look at our students that earned that highest category, demonstrating, we can see that throughout all students in kindergarten, we were at 53%. So 53% of our students hit the highest score possible on kindergarten readiness. But when we break it down further and we look back, who attended WCPS pre-K? We can actually see that number is 62%. So that is, when you look at this, the orange color, and then not WCPS pre-K is the 33%. So we can see that we are getting a return on our pre-K investment. The same with approaching, and what we're encouraged by, again, that 53 and 28%, so almost 80% of our students, again, in that demonstrating approaching. When we compare WCPS pre-K to not being in pre-K, and then we look at the emerging. And again, that is our lowest score for overall. And we can see, again, all KRA for us as a county, that is 19%. When we look at those that attended WCPS pre-K versus those that did not attend pre-K, we can see that there is a gap there that we want to work on closing. So let's look at our history. So we've talked a little bit about, this is WCPS. This is where we started back in 2016. And again, 2016 wasn't an indicator of our school system. Kindergarten readiness is an indicator of our community. And when you look at what we've done from 2016, even to 2021, I go from 33 to 42%, 9%. And then last year, 42 to 53, 1 year, 11 percentage points, more than we increased in all of our other years combined. It's pretty impressive. So we wanted to see, all right, maybe it was just one of those years where the whole state increased. And the reality is, while the state went up 2 percentage points, this county far exceeded. So while I started thanking our teachers, our paraprofessionals that are in those rooms, our lead teachers, the division of curriculum, our principals, and anyone else that I might have missed, parents, community members, because as I said, this is a community outcome. 53%, and statistically speaking, those of you that are involved in statistics with data know that is a very significant increase. So as Dr. Sovine shared, we were 4th in the state. And again, if I went back to 16, we were right there with Prince George's County. As I was looking at the data from across the state, there's not a lot of movement by counties. This county continues to exceed expectations, especially when you look at our mobility and our free and reduced meals rate. It's really quite impressive. So again, very proud of our teachers, our students, all of our groups that were involved in making this a reality, but also knowing there's still work to be done. And so with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Ms. Longerbeam to wrap up.
So thinking about next steps, because we're always thinking ahead, what can we do better, how can we grow? As you have heard with Blueprint, Blueprint doesn't only include our 4-year-olds, but it's also looking at our 3-year-old population, those Tier 1 students. So we really need to start thinking about expansion of a 3-year-old program, especially in, the Hagerstown area for our Tier 1 students, because we do want all students ready. And if we look at data, we see some gaps there. We see students who aren't ready. So we want to help them because all students deserve that opportunity. We also want to continue to work with our daycare providers, our community partners, just like Dr. Willow shared. It takes a village, and it takes all of us together because our goal is for all of our students to be kindergarten ready when they enter. So continue to provide professional development opportunities with them so they're aware of everything that we're doing. We're on the same page with the best practices. Also, opportunities to strengthen math and literacy instruction. So I guess it was over a year ago, it was brought up to you about a high-quality resource to use in math. And we have been implementing the Bridges program in our pre-K classrooms, and we have seen gains with that. And we want to continue to provide those professional learning opportunities because we want to continue to see more gains and see our students succeeding. And then I'm not going to spoil what's coming up next, but we are looking at a new elementary pre-K resource as well to help support our English language arts because we do want to see that starting in pre-K and how that can build with that. So more to come with that. And then something that's actually kind of in the works right now is that we see the need in our Title I schools. So currently, we are actually hiring Title I kindergarten paraprofessionals in every kindergarten classroom. And they are not just being thrown in, they are receiving training on literacy, mathematics, and behavioral support. So they have the background knowledge to help support because, it would be great to see, next year come to you and say, look at this now. We have more kids ready than ever because our goal is for them to be ready and set that solid foundation. Thank you.
Thank you. I couldn't be happier with, it tells a story. It tells a story of vision, commitment, hard work on the part of the teachers, paras, all staff involved. And I was excited, I am excited to hear the next steps and the expansion for 3-year-olds. But I heard something this evening that reminded me that we need to do something about class size in kindergarten. I think it's great that we're going to have pairs in kindergarten in our Title I schools, but we need to do something about class size in those primary grades. This afternoon in our work session, we heard about all the wonderful opportunities available to our high school students. But in order for them to reap the benefits of those opportunities, they have to have a strong foundation and a desire to learn, and I think that starts in our early grades. So this is wonderful that we've done this for our pre-K students, but we can't let them down. We can't put them then into kindergarten and have them experience anything other than success, continued success. So it's wonderful that we have universal pre-K. Now I think we have to invest in the primary grades in order to ensure that our readiness is maximized. So to you, Dr. Savine, to you, for the leadership to make that happen.
No, and thank you, President Williams, for that passion and support for early childhood learning. And I also want to extend my appreciation to Mrs. Longerbeam. You heard and saw that love for students and passion for our early learning process, and also want to extend my appreciation to all of our pre-K teachers, early childhood educators that are here tonight and perhaps watching on TV. We appreciate what you're doing. This is exceptional news, and your work is paying off. It's a very wise investment. I would be remiss if I didn't say, just commend this board and for your visionary leadership and seeing the value in investing in a pre-K 4 program, and to have that in all of our schools. You can see the benefits of that now. Certainly, as Dr. Willow has shared, there are some opportunities to expand in targeted areas for pre-K 3. So we look forward to continuing that path, and I believe we have some additional really good news continuing with instruction, but we're going to shift to reading. But thank you, Ms.
Thank you
Longerby.
both. Thank you.
As I mentioned, at WCPS, we believe in developing an educational foundation rooted in strong literacy skills. This is largely correlated with success across all academic areas, and I'd like to share an update with the board this evening about reading instruction strategies at the elementary level. And Dr. Willow is remaining here, and then joining Dr. Willow is our supervisor of ELA and social studies, Mrs. Carly Pumphrey, and joining our central office team members is Lisa Teeter, a kindergarten teacher at Clear Spring Elementary, and Carly Marcerone, a fourth grade teacher at Pangbourne Elementary. So we are continuing excitement and just focus with elementary and focusing now on reading. We have much to be proud of there. Dr. Willow.
Well, I'm honored to have all three of them up here with me, and so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking. We'll let the experts do more of that talking for us. But what I will say is there's sometimes a misconception around the science of reading and what the science of reading is, and what that means in terms of how we use literacy in our elementary grades. So tonight's presentation purpose really is to give our vision and background on the science of reading, and then we have two phenomenal teachers here with us this evening to share some additional information into the CKLA resource. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Pumphrey.
Good evening, President Williams, Dr. Sovine, and the board. I'm excited to share with you the WCPS Literacy Vision, and this was created with various stakeholders over the summer who participated in some training around the latest research around the science of reading. That group of people included educators, parents, special educators, secondary teachers, elementary teachers. It was about 60 individuals who crafted this vision statement. And my favorite part is the first sentence. All WCPS students have the right to be successful and confident readers and writers. That group that day engaged in a lot of data and information, and one of the talking points was that every parent or grandparent in Washington County who puts a child on a school bus to go to school expects that we're going to teach them to read and write. None of them say, well, 50% are going to read and write. I hope my child's part of that 50%. Every single parent expects that we're going to do that, and that is our charge. And we believe that every student has that right, and we are committed to doing that for our students in Washington County. As part of that, we will ground our instruction in the science of reading. So what is the science of reading? I understand that was been asked of us, and it is important that we discuss that. There's a quote now on the screen, and this is from Dr. Louisa Moats, and she's an expert in the area. If you take a minute to read it, it's not a program, it's not really anything political, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. What the science of reading basically is the knowledge of how we learn to read, what the research says about how an individual learns to read, and what we can do when they struggle to read. That's really what the science of reading is. So we have been using the latest knowledge of what it takes to learn to read, and we're using that information to inform our instruction. So the next slide is just a visual of what that science of reading is. What is the knowledge of how do students become skilled readers and writers? And basically it's in two categories. Most people, when they think of science of reading, they think of phonics, which is the foundational reading skills that are essential. That's in the bottom part of that rope. The word recognition of knowing your letters and your sounds and your words, and that is being able to decode or sound out words and be able to read the words on the page. But it also includes language comprehension. That is our knowledge of the world around us, our vocabulary understanding, our knowledge of print and how print works. And as all of those skills are woven together like a rope, this is known as the Scarborough's reading rope, it's based on research, as all of those skills are woven together and done very strategically across time, then we will have skilled readers. What does that look like in instruction? In instruction for foundational skills, it requires 4 very important things. Systematic instruction, which is a clear sequence for how we learn these foundational skills, as well as an explicit way of teaching that, telling our students what the sounds are, learning the sounds in an explicit way and connecting it to the letters, and then giving our students adequate time to practice those skills and using assessment to drive that instruction. What do we know about what sounds they do know? What do we know about what letters they know? And how are we using that information to determine next steps? And then there are some very key ways that we include knowledge building in our instruction. And that is, are we actually teaching for the purpose of gaining knowledge and learning vocabulary? Ways we can do that is having multiple texts on a particular topic so that students are immersed in a topic, learning vocabulary across various topics, attention to lots of rich vocabulary, and opportunities for them to showcase their learning and share what they know. I'm excited to share with you today that we've had 69 teachers in Washington County since the first day of school, using 2 resources that have been vetted by the state and approved by the MD Leads initiative. And we had teachers volunteer to use those resources from the first day of school. They dove into these resources, learning as well as doing everything else that they do as teachers, learning these resources, attending professional learning opportunities, and some cases with their teams, other cases all by themselves as a solo teacher at the school, and engaging their learners. And we have 2 teachers here who used the CKLA, which at the end of our 9 weeks field experience, we gathered the feedback from our teachers, and we had 90% of our teachers recommend CKLA as a choice for our our HQIM, high quality instructional materials. So I'm going to hand it over to Carly and Lisa, who are going to share with us their experience with this. I'm going to start with Lisa. She's a kindergarten teacher at Clear Spring Elementary School.
Good evening. First, I want to say thank you to our pre-K teachers for all the students that they send us to kindergarten ready to go. That data is evident when we get them. So thank you to Kelly and the pre-K team. It's fantastic. I have had the pleasure of getting to pilot CKLA, and I have absolutely loved doing this so far, to the point where even when it was over, I said, well, I still have materials. Can I just keep going until you tell me I can't? And we make a decision. So I have continued to use it up till this point, even today. So here are some of the things that I have really found that I like. The phonics lessons, which they call the skills books, and the knowledge, which is your reading comprehension books, are separate things, which I love. This allows me the flexibility to personalize student learning. I can go slower with knowledge, I can go faster with skills, whatever I need to do, depending on the students in my classroom and their needs. I can use the very first unit for those students who did not go to pre-K and the skills, who don't know their letters and sounds, because we do get those students in kindergarten that know none of their letters and sounds. So I can use unit 1 of skills and start with them, work with them, or I was able to skip ahead to about skills 2 and 3 units for those friends that had that rich pre-K experience here at WCPS. And I love that I was able to do that because CKLA have 2 separate components. And by doing that, I am able to stay true to the sequence of learning in both of those areas to ensure those mastery of foundational skills that they need. Students have workbooks. These are very engaging. They work in their workbooks at school, and they practice letter formation, writing them correctly, spelling their CVC words. All of that is done daily. There are also take-home pages included in the books, and at parent conferences this year that the early learning department lets us have in kindergarten, which is fantastic. This year, many parents shared that those kids, when they bring them home, the take-home pages that we didn't do, they are pretending to play school. They're staying engaged even at home. So I love that engagement continues. And I can just picture some of my kids actually playing school at home as well. So I love that. And parents then can see what they've been learning in school and hear what they're doing. For teachers, this is a wonderful resource. My whole team did not pilot this. I was on my own at Clear Spring during the first marking period, and I was checking where my team was on the progression and what they were planning and what I was doing. And the standards are listed at the beginning of each lesson, and it was not difficult to marry what I was doing with our phonics progression here in the county. I was able to really stay with my team, with what I was teaching. I love the way that CKLA taught the lessons, the repetition, and the way the students were able to practice skills daily. One day I pulled out the letter chart where we manipulate the letters and we do some word chaining, meaning we only change one letter. So if I say, here's the word did, change that to dad. The kids are able to do that. It's called word chaining. And as soon as I pulled it out, one of the kids said, oh, good, we get to be chaining today. So I love that they're looking forward to the lessons. Today we were actually writing those, and I was so impressed with how well they are doing. I also liked how it really explains not only letters and sounds, but how similar sounds are. Students learned about sister sounds such as F and V, S and Z, and T and D, etc. Students learned that when saying these sounds, we're holding our mouths the same way, and it helps with students with tricky words like of. Of sounds like a V, but it's OF. So those tricky words in kindergarten, it's tough. It's tough to teach kindergarten and all these different exceptions to the rules and different things, and CKLA has really given us the tools to help with that. The knowledge part of it, which is our reading comprehension. The knowledge units so far have been a wonderful blend of fiction and nonfiction for the students. I love all the vocabulary words that we're teaching our students. Just an example of that, the very first unit was on fairy tales, and one of the words was nimble. Jack be nimble, Jack be quick. We repeat these to our students all the time, but we just kind of think they know what they mean. But to explicitly teach that vocabulary was awesome. We practiced it. They jumped over a candlestick. They got to hear examples of the word used in different ways. For example, my little brother is learning to walk and falls down, and they would shout, not nimble. Or Liliana jumps over the mud puddle to avoid getting her shoes wet, and they could yell, that's nimble. So I truly appreciate that they're using different modalities as well, which in kindergarten is really important to get them up and moving, so that's great. And for parents, the take-home pieces are really important. The knowledge have information on each unit I was able to send home, and at parent conferences, once again, one of the things they say is that their kids come home and they'll say, what did you do today? And what do kindergarten students say? Lunch, recess. I played with my friends, sometimes I feel like we teach nothing, but we do, and I keep telling them, go home and share your learning. This way, the parents know what they are learning. I can send that parent letter home. I can put it in a newsletter, and they know exactly what they are learning during that unit. So that is absolutely fantastic. And like I said earlier, the take-home pieces I mentioned earlier in the skills workbooks, that's not more work for parents. That's not homework for these little people. That is just an extra way that parents can support and know what's going on and continue the learning at home if they want to and if the students want to.
I'm going to pass it on to Carly Masseron. She is a fourth grade teacher at Pangbourne.
Hi, I'm Carly Marceron, fourth grade teacher at Pangbourne, and I had the opportunity to pilot CKLA as well. My first reason that I absolutely love it is that the texts are manageable, engaging, diverse, and complex, all in one. Pangbourne has the highest EL population in Washington County. In our first unit of personal narratives, first story or second story that they read was about a person that was born in Puerto Rico. I literally watched my students' eyes lighten up as they read about someone that looks like them. The second thing we read with personal narratives was about a young girl their age that was diagnosed with polio. They didn't know what polio was, but they were able through their reading to make connections with COVID and have amazing conversations and discussions with each other about these texts. The second unit is about the Middle Ages. I was really worried that they were going to come to me with no background knowledge. But now today, they can talk to you about kings, queens, lords, serfs, and not only talk to you about those in Europe, but make connections on how the 13 colonies were developed, which is a part of our social studies curriculum. The texts are high quality, just like MCAT, so we're not spending test prep time. Every single day, they are being prepared for the MCAT test. My second reason is there's built-in time to explicitly teach writing, vocabulary, and language standards. On the first day of school, my students wrote a paragraph. They were asked to write about a memory about school. This, for me, was one, to be able to make a connection with them, see what they love or maybe don't love about school, but also assess their writing informally on the first day. As a teacher, we are spending time teaching those language standards, sentence structure, paragraph structure, and how to use parts of speech to enhance their writing. Vocabulary is a huge aspect of CKLA. As a Title I teacher, we know that it's important to expose these students to 6 to 8 new vocabulary words every single day. And I can tell you CKLA provides more than that. Not only are they being exposed to these vocabulary words, but we are giving them multiple ways to represent their learning and tackle those unknown words. For example, there was a lesson where the teacher was reading aloud and the students were acting out in order to figure out what those words mean. We explicitly teach how to use context clues and how to use a glossary. At the end of our first unit about personal narratives, we actually celebrated as the whole 4th grade, and every class nominated one student to share their personal narrative. An amazing story is one of our students was an EL student who went in front of his entire peers and shared about his experience as the first time being in this country. And then last, as a teacher, it gives us spiral review and the standards are taught fluidly and not in isolation. CKLA provides diverse texts, so us as teachers can spend more time figuring out how to meet the needs of our students versus what to actually teach. Those texts are provided for us. Each lesson provides differentiation for our EL students, scaffolds for at-risk emerging readers, including special education or students with disabilities, and enrichment opportunities. Lastly, the standards fit authentically in every single text, and they're constantly being reassessed and spiraled throughout the year.
I told you they were the experts. And so as we conclude, to our parents, to our community members, to staff that have not had the opportunity, not only are these materials on display in our lobby, we did get access. Any community member, any parent can log in and see all of the materials. And so that's important. We've heard that when we purchase new resources, it's good for everybody to be able to see them. So they are on display, but you do not have to come here. You can access them from home. Last night we were at Clear Spring Elementary. Tomorrow night we are at Ruth Ann Monroe. And on Thursday night we are at Rockland Woods. 6 o'clock, open to anyone. You get to see all of the materials, hear this presentation, have conversations with the team to learn more about this resource that we do intend to ask the board to purchase on January 3rd.
Dr. Willow, Ms. Pomfrey, thank you all for leading this process, but most importantly, to our teachers, thank you for embracing this pilot and sharing your experiences. Clearly, your students are blessed with 2 talented individuals that are passionate about the reading, science of reading, and just thank you for coming after a long day to share your experience. Thank you.
I know you have a question.
I do. I have
You go
several.
right ahead.
I have several. And now we're talking, you know. This is my thing. This is my thing. Your enthusiasm for this program is just wonderful to see. So in my course of 30-some years in Washington County Public Schools, I've seen basal reading, whole language, balanced literacy approach, reading, writing workshops, guided reading, shared reading, independent reading. So, Mrs. Pumphrey, now we're talking science of reading. What I'm hearing sounds very much like a basal program. I'm not, are we still using guided reading? Are we using level text? Are we using classroom libraries and book bins for independent reading? Are we going to this resource that is everything in a box, in a book? Help me,
That was a
help me
loaded
envision-
question, but I
help
will
me
do my
envision-
best.
Help me envision
Yes.
this.
Okay, so a couple of things. Yes, we are shifting away from leveled text in terms of identifying where a student is and keeping them at that level. The research shows that giving them complex text at grade level and giving them the supports to access that will better support them and better close the gaps. We still provide some scaffolds and interventions and support for students who are not yet meeting that grade level. The science of reading is, again, it's not necessarily a program. That's why it was important that we started with that vision. Like that vision is what will guide everything that we do. And in order to reach that vision, we do need resources that will help us to do that well. And so the resource is simply a tool to help us reach that vision. It provides skill lessons for the foundational skills for our students, and that would be your phonics, so your decoding skills for our youngest learners. And then it also provides the rich text with the academic vocabulary so that our students are learning to be able to gain that language comprehension. So you will see whole group instruction with at grade level and complex text and vocabulary. You will also see some small group instruction. You will see students reading, we're calling them decodable texts. They're known as decodable texts, texts that they can decode or read based on the skills they have been taught. So something, again, a little bit shift from the leveled readers. Often the leveled readers provided words in the text that they had not even been taught the skills to decode or sound out, and therefore they would start to guess words. And in some ways we would guide them to that. And the research shows that that is not the best way to learn to read. And so we are making the shift away from a balanced literacy approach to a very structured approach with a sequence of skills that we progress through and have evidence based on what we collect for our students to understand. Independent reading will still be important. It's important for students to choose text that they can read and enjoy reading and talk about reading. And the teachers will be providing some small group instruction. It will not be the typical guided reading that we know of, but it is targeted instruction based on what we know our students need to be able to improve. I hope that that describes it. Dr. Willow, can you fill in the blanks?
I think you did a great job, but I think President Williams might have another question.
We're going to leave it at that.
Okay.
There's the opportunity for further discussion, and I
Absolutely.
welcome that, but
Absolutely.
we'll just stop with that. Colleagues, did you have any questions? I didn't want to hog up the entire time.
Sorry, I know it's late, but
No. We can talk science and reading all night, Mr.
I say
Stafford.
this for myself, as part of the decision-making process, I would also like to hear from those teachers who, here in a presentation if possible, who piloted benchmark to see what they liked about it. I'd also like to hear from people who piloted CKLA. Apparently wasn't unanimous, teachers who, what they didn't like about it and so forth. That's just for my personal decision-making process. Don't take those statements as being for or against either one. I just like to have a balanced presentation and so that I know. And I've started that process and so forth, but that's for me.
The acronym CKLA is,
Core Knowledge Language Arts.
thank you.
Yes.
Do we need to have this decision made on January 3rd? It does kind of seem like it's a little rushed. We're getting the presentation here. Mr. Stauffer brought up some pretty good questions there. Is it possible maybe push it back to the
We could
second meeting in
wait.
January?
The thought process is we do have some teachers that want to begin using it. And so we have the kits that obviously we have for the pilot. There are some staffs that are ready to move forward. So really it's just about the sooner we make the decision the second half of the year that the teachers have access to the materials. And again, it's not mandatory use this second half of the year. This will be something that everybody will have in August, but for now, there is some excitement. And we are getting calls, when can I begin? So that's really what it comes down to, is the ordering of it and getting it in.
Yeah, and I can certainly appreciate that.
Yeah.
Just, if we waited an extra 2 weeks or whatever so we
Sure.
can hear, from what Mr. Stauffer was asking for, I personally would appreciate that too. I don't know which one I'm for, because I went to Miss Smith's class at Ruth Ann Monroe, and I absolutely loved what I saw. I have no clue how a first grade teacher can keep the attention span of 6 and 7-year-olds, let alone kindergartners, for an hour and a half in one room. It's quite impressive. I struggle to do that with high schoolers for an hour and a half. So, yeah, exactly. So, I personally have seen great things from both of these. For me, it's not going to be an easy decision. I personally would like, to hear what Mr. Stauffer was asking for, and I wouldn't mind it. I don't know how the rest of the board feels if we moved it to maybe the second meeting in January, so we have a little time to hear from everyone as well. So, and that's just a suggestion, nothing that we discuss now, I guess. I don't know, but.
Mr. Stauffer, maybe we could go watch, like we watched CKLA.
We could look at that as well. Let us talk as a team, and we'll determine. We will
That way
certainly
could-
look at
Because
that.
we saw the one program, maybe we could see the other, would help us with our information.
Curriculum and Instruction Committee did go to Pangbourne, and we went to Salem Avenue. And I will say this, I was impressed with the content that I heard coming out of the first grade class at Salem Avenue. Being an old social studies teacher, I was amazed at what those kids taught and everything. And I'll just throw in this plug to the people out there who think we indoctrinate and don't educate. I heard discussions about democracy in that first grade class, which, if you listen to some people, that it's the opposite. So I'll just throw that in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for staying with us through this long evening.
Once again,
Thank you.
President Williams, members of the board, say I'm amazed at our students each and every day, but what absolutely blows me away is seeing a home that our students have built. Juniors and seniors from the Boyd J. Michael III Technical High School in the electrical instruction and building systems programs tackle these types of projects. This is home number 26 for us this year, and it's an unparalleled learning experience as students learn by doing, working alongside their teachers and professionals in the industry. I want to invite you to take a closer look in observing this year's video of our home build.
The house project is an on-the-job learning experience for all kids that are in the construction and electrical program, where we pretty much build a house up from foundation up, do all the wiring.
Every piece of material that's in this house, we have had our hands on in one way or the other. We build it, we work on it, we learn, and at the end we sell it, we buy more lots, we move on.
Whether it's helping set up forms with Beaver Concrete to have the foundation poured, if we have masons involved, they're here with the masons helping carry block, brick, mortar, and those sorts of things. They're here with those contractors, helping those contractors, and at least seeing that process. We can't say enough about the support we get for projects like this. Contractors are constantly stopping by to check progress, working with our kids. That's probably the biggest benefit, is contractors that do that work every day, coming and working with our students and showing them how it needs to be done in the real world.
I'm astonished every day I come out here, the amount of learning that goes on and the amount of accomplishment. I mean, you look around, you can see it everywhere.
One of the main things I did was wiring the panel in the basement. It was a little complicated. Like I obviously didn't know what I was doing because I hadn't done it before. But my teacher, he walked me through it, and now I'm pretty confident with it. I've been doing it at work.
The most challenging part was learning how to measure the stuff out like exactly.
I didn't really think I could do it at first, but as we got going, I was like, oh, I can do this stuff. I'm learning how.
Sheeting the roof and shingling it was my favorite, being up on the roof. The shingling was fun. It took a long time, but it was fun putting it down and making sure it was right and cutting the valleys and everything else.
I really enjoyed whenever we were setting trusses. It was just cool seeing like how they were set with like the crane, and he would like perfectly get them set down, and then we had to like nail them in. It was a very nice experience.
We painted it and we're putting in the baseboard and the trim and all of that stuff. And right now, for the last couple weeks, I've been touching up on all of the paint, all the little imperfections, so we can get it ready to sell.
We have kids out here who are dedicated, who are hungry for knowledge, who want to learn how to wire houses, who want to learn how to build houses. Working with these kids here gives me hope that we do have good kids all the way who want to go out, who want to work, who want to be professionals.
It's somewhat surreal in the idea that they let a bunch of high school students build a house. But in the end, it's really interesting to think that we did all this and that it's going to sell, someone's going to buy it, someone's going to live here.
I think the people who buy it should know who built it. I want them to know we worked really hard on it. Hope they like it.
I mean, all the classroom stuff is great. All of the labs we do in our mock home, they're great. But I mean, being here, seeing a finished product that we, as students got to build, it's a great feeling.
I'll just add that the home that you just saw, it's located in the halfway area. I want to emphasize that it's currently on the market. And if you didn't catch it in the video, the proceeds from the sale of this home will be used to start the next home build project. I want to extend my congratulations to students and their teachers for another successful home build. Once again, home number 26 for WCPS. Also, in closing, I'd like to take this moment to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays and a wonderful New Year. Our schools and offices will be closed for winter break starting on Friday, December the 23rd. We will welcome students and staff back in 2023 on Tuesday, January the 3rd. Hope everyone enjoys this well-deserved break with your friends and family. President Williams, members of the board, that concludes my report. I remain open for questions or comments.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sovan. Right, we'll move to personnel actions. We have Dr. Wilcox, our Executive Director of Secondary Education, presenting.
As discussed earlier during closed session, there are several staff changes for your review. At this time, I ask for your approval of today's personnel items.
Thank you, Dr. Wilcox. Is there a motion?
President Williams? I move to approve the personnel actions dated Tuesday, December 13th, 2022, as presented in the closed session.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. So the motion is to approve personnel actions as discussed earlier in closed session. All those in favor? Okay, we have 6 affirmative. Unanimous vote. Motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Wilcox. Okay, we'll move now to reports to the board. And we have Dr. Zentmeyer down there.
Most of my report has been given. Lyndon, Stan, and I did get to go and see Mrs. Morris and Mrs. Barber's classes at Pangbourne and Dr. Miller's class at Salem, the CKLA. I cannot imagine anything being better than. I was so excited I couldn't wait to tell people when I got out of there. It was just awesome. From start to finish, those youngest learners could read and write on their little whiteboards. They were just, it was amazing, amazing. And the energy in those classrooms was beyond compare. I just appreciated it so much. So it looks like our next step is to go and visit Benchmark.
Thank you. Mr. Evans?
Yeah, thank you to Ms. Smith for allowing me into her classroom, and I know it's not easy when you have a school as large as that with Ruth Ann Monroe, but you know, we've heard an awful lot about that school and some of the struggles that they've seen, but I didn't see any of it when I was there. It was a phenomenal experience. The staff was great. The kids were great. You know, I really appreciate it. Not to say that some of the concerns we've heard about don't exist, but there's a lot more good that's happening at that school than not. So, and also got to go see, last week or the week before, we got to go see the opening ceremony there, the official opening ceremony of the diesel program over there at Tech High. That was great. And Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all.
Would you like to tell us about Finance Committee?
Just kidding. Well, that's my comment too.
We got your comments.
I gotta go
Did you
walk
wanna
my
say
dog.
anything?
My poor little buddy's stuck in his crate. But anyway, no, our finance committee, we talked about EduPoint, the software there, and we also talked about CKOA as well.
Great. Thank you, Mr.
And next
Evans.
meeting is TBD.
TBD.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to write that down, TBD. Mr.
To be
Bickford,
determined, is that
Policy
what you-
Committee.
Policy met and discussed many of the items that came forward tonight. We did set a tentative meeting for January 12th at 1 p.m.
Thank you. Mrs. Murray, Curriculum and Instruction.
Instruction will be meeting sometime in February.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, future agenda items. You have a list. And coming up very quickly on January.
I'm sorry, I said curriculum and
I
instruction.
caught that too, but I figured.
I didn't even notice. HR.
HR.
Okay.
Too late.
It's all right. It's a great committee.
It's late.
Future agenda items, we have a work session on January 3rd. That will start our day of meetings. And on January 3rd, we will be voting on standing committee membership. I ask that each of you let me know, please, your first, second, and third prioritized choices of committees so that we can have those assignments to staff. If you could let me know that by Friday, that would be very appreciated. So we have that on January 3rd. We'll be considering the proposed academic year calendars for 2023-2024 and 2024-2025. Our second meeting in January, we'll have an update on school counseling and mental health, and we'll have a report on the math tutoring program. We have the draft budget to approve on February 7th. And then there's lots more. I won't continue due to the lateness of the hour. You have those agenda items, and should you have something that you would like to see on an agenda, please let a member, an agenda planning committee member know of your interest, and we'll do what we can to get it scheduled. And now, Mr. Evans, we're to board member comments. Would you like to say any more in your comments?
Thanks to Ms.
Is there
McCarthy
anything
for.
you didn't get to say?
Yeah, I did forget. Thanks to Ms. McCarthy for staying, especially in a long meeting like this, you can tell that the room empties out slowly, so we appreciate you staying and hearing what we have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Zepmeyer?
If you've never thought about it, think about how traditions are born. Father, Eric Lenhart, is home for the holidays, and he talked to me about how in Germany, in the 1600s, they would take the wheels off of the carts and trade them for sled runners because of the snow. So they'd hang them up, and from those wheels, because the days were shorter, they started putting candles. And as it got darker and darker, earlier and earlier, they put more and more candles on the wheel. Well, the church used this these homemade chandeliers as a way to build background knowledge, and thus the Advent wreath was born. How cool is that? Happy holidays to everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Zepmeyer.
That's new.
I attended a band concert and chorus concert at Williamsport Elementary. I forget what night it was on now, but the students did a very, very good job and so forth. I also attended the, I don't know his middle name, but middle initial, but the Boyd Michael III Technical High School. What is it?
Jay.
BJ.
Okay.
BJM the
So,
third.
okay. So attended that. It was good to see the former superintendent and so forth. I also would just like to say that I'd like to wish everybody Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah, whatever it is you celebrate this time of the year. Peace on earth, goodwill toward men. And I want to congratulate my colleague. I've known Mrs. Williams for decades in the system. Sorry, but we have. And so forth. And congratulations on being selected again as president. You do an excellent job. I've told you that many times. And I am very proud to have been given the privilege again to serve as an assistant to you. And we bounce ideas off of each other and so forth, but congratulations. I know you'll do an excellent job, and I know how dedicated you are to WCPS. Thank you.
Thank you for those kind words, Mr. Stoutland. Mr. Pickford?
Nothing for me. Merry Christmas.
I've been to a lot of schools. Thank you very much to everyone that I saw. You were wonderful. And happy holidays, and everyone have a safe New Year.
And then it's to me. So I would like to thank everyone who participated in our meeting, whether it was a community member, a staff member, a teacher, colleagues. It's been a long day of meetings. Thank you for sticking with it. Dr. Savine, thank you for your leadership. And I wish everyone a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and have a wonderful New Year. We'll see you back on January 3rd. Dr. Savine, any closing remarks? Okay, we'll adjourn this meeting. Thank you.